We love a bit of history here in London. Westminster Hall behind me in Parliament was built way back in 1097. Just across the way at Westminster Cathedral, 40 kings and queens have been crowned down the ages. And under the stony gaze of Churchill, Mandela and Lincoln and co, London's also a city that changes with the times. And right now, the times demand that cities worldwide get smart. So alongside the history here is the technology, to tell us when the next bus is arriving, for instance, or to enable us to go green by hiring a bike. But is that tech enough in itself to create a truly smart city? Sustainability is, after all, a pretty difficult goal to achieve. But you can always rely on Winston to come up with a relevant quote for every occasion. The pessimist, he says, is someone who sees difficulty in every opportunity. The optimist is someone who sees opportunity in every difficulty. Dr. Jacqui Taylor certainly sees endless opportunity. She's been dubbed the world's first smart city czar. And the key to her optimism, she told me when she popped into Huawei's London office, is in recognising that when it comes to smart cities, tech is an enabler, not the outcome itself.
Deep technology will change our society. And if we didn't negotiate that, not in a good way. So all the dystopian futures that you hear about come from the idea that technology changes our society, not for the benefit of the human. And so my research has all been around that and looking at the changing landscape of technology and the new generations that come in and their attitude towards it, but then also not understanding what you're doing with technology in a smart city concept or even a smart city itself gives you the wrong outcome. And then that benefits nobody and certainly sets the agenda back many times. And I said, well, we should just change the framing of it and focus on the outcomes with technology as the enabler. The one thing all cities have in common is they're all different.
Yeah.
And that's the idea that, you know, if you get beyond technology as the outcome, you must not have a homogenous approach to it, because this is about health and well-being of the citizens. So it's not something that, you know, a technology is going to drive. You need to have that understanding. And so the research comes from understanding the different generations, the way they use technology. And at the end of the day, it's about inheriting what you have, but then accelerating that change we all want to see.
So how do you do that? Because people always talk about putting the citizen first or putting the customer first. How do you retain that human at the heart?
Well, it's a really interesting question. You have to define what that is first. So in terms of putting the Green Deal together in Europe, I was looking at how do we reimagine this agenda where there's no question like the one you asked. The citizen is driving it. How do you do that? And of course, it's down to economics. And so essentially, there are two sides to the market. And I would say that before we did the Green Deal in Europe, nobody ever talked about anything other than the supply side, what cities do for the citizen. But what about the demand side? What about what citizens want from cities? And if you talk about Generation Z, they're 30 and under today, they're not passive, they're participatory. So what do we need to do in order at the end of it, our citizens' choices and priorities are the ones that get positioned for the change? Because it's a huge change wherever when you bring sustainability and cities together. But how do we make sure that it has that demand side, the citizen side at the heart?
So not something just being done to a citizen, but with a citizen and by the citizen. Yes.
For the citizen.
So is that a whole new social contract?
Totally.
Right.
And it's built on a new trust model. I think that it's very fundamental. It's societal. So you can do things at a hyper-local level, great. But how do you build that across an EU 27 or 4 nations of the UK? You can't sort of do that just by telling people. You have to have something that they can latch onto. It has to be a long-term plan. It has to be an evolutionary agenda. And so how do you square that circle? And essentially at the heart of it was that new trust contract. And so do you have a core framework you can work to from a data point of view that gives you what you need? And does that open up new business models, new commercial models? And the answer is it does. Ultimately, what you then create is a stakeholder ecosystem where everybody's vested in it, everybody understands it, and everybody can back it. And then then there's an acceleration piece, because as you start to negotiate that new social contract, it really does open up the opportunity, because they are our future hubs of business. So then it becomes a sort of multifaceted, multi-agency model. And business is the key to that, because instigator of change. When you see a problem, any business leader sees a problem, looks to put something in place to solve that problem. And that's why I always say businesses are the future hubs. The smart cities really are business hubs.
That said, the advent of AI, or the advance of AI, or the sort of light being shone on AI, what difference do you think that will make for smart city development and advancement?
The Gen AI rise that we've got now, I believe will take us from a smart cities point of view exactly where we were back in 2014, which is we've done some efficiencies with it and we haven't worked out how to make a difference with it.
Right.
So that's good, because if cities can make efficiency savings, they will operate more effectively, they will have perhaps more understanding of their demand side and what citizens want. But I don't think it's the differentiator. It's part of the puzzle. I would say that it's actually the deployment of the LoRaWANs, the actuators, the sensors that actually in the work we do, give us more in terms of opportunity and where we might look and what we might do, than actually just making process more efficient, which is where the AI piece is at now.
So what's the responsibility in light of that, and in light of what you've been saying about business? What is the responsibility on the sort of bigger technology companies like Huawei? What's the duty on us? What are you looking for from us? Because obviously we will provide solutions and services and all that, but what do you want to see us do, and what's the potential for what we can do?
Well, it's more of a joint venture approach, because actually the technology is only part of it. And to be really brutal, the civic leaders don't care about the technology. We all care about it, of course we do, but they don't care. They want it to work. They want to be sure of the outcomes. They want to be sure of the social contract they have with their citizens. But I'm seeing business driving that change now by looking at opportunities, by looking at which outcomes need to change, by being part of the data framework and the ecosystem and making a contribution. So in some respects, that's an investment by the city and it's an investment by the technology company, but it's societal. And unless you're doing it at that level, you won't ever create a technology that will be able to be deployed across cities. You'll create lots of instances of slightly different variations. So we all as technologies want to create a service. It'll have to be multi-configurable.
And also, so it really is critical that you are listening and collaborating. It's not a nice to have. It's like you're not going to solve anything or help anyone without that element.
And really the reality of it is, from a technology point of view, we do need technology companies to do exactly what I just described, because this change has to happen. We are running out of time now. From a sustainability point of view, the climate events we've had in 2023, the ones we've already had in 2024, it's clear the planet is running out of patience with us. Almost you need a reflection of that multi-agency model within whatever intervention you're doing. So both the supply and the demand side, citizens at the heart of it, in order to make that work. But when you do make it work, transformation.